Hi, and welcome back to the ABCs of Success. I'm Corey, and I thank you for joining me for the letter G this week. Now, before we launch into G, I did want to make sure that you're aware that we have a video review on our website at tbtnyc.org. This review looks back over the letters A through F, and it reads the character trait, the definition, and also then has the scripture song that corresponds with that trait. So it's designed for review, which, as I'm sure you know, review is essential to integrating these traits into our lives. And even review isn't enough, right? We need to be taking action to be implementing these traits. But review is step one. And so you can listen through those traits. I encourage you to do that regularly. And again, you can find that on our website. Okay, so now we will move on with the letter G, which is godly. The definition is, I am continually learning and reprogramming my robot to do all that God has revealed in the Bible He requires of me. Okay, so let's first look at what a godly person is. A godly person, besides a definition, a godly person knows and does what God requires. Okay, that's important as we move into the definition. This word was also used as for the pagan priests who knew and did what their gods required, and they were considered godly. Now, we are serving the one true creator God of the scriptures, okay? So we need to be understanding, knowing, and doing what he requires, okay? So that actually links with the first part of our definition, which is I am continually learning, right? We need to learn through the scriptures or through the Bible, which is God's revelation. It comprises everything that we need to know for life and godliness here on this planet. It tells us who God is. It tells us his purposes, his plans. It helps us understand what is good and evil in his sight. It helps us understand his promises, what he has in store for us now and in the future. It talks about faith. It talks about consequences. I mean, the scriptures basically have all that we need. So we need to be studying that. We need to learn. There is truly no better time spent than spent with our Creator, understanding why he made us and what he wants us to do. Okay, we need to understand and implement his commands. So that's the next part, is doing, right? So we know we're continually learning. It's not a one-time thing. We continually study. We will do what's in front of us, right? We can easily forget. So we need to be regularly studying the scriptures. I hope that everyone has a daily quiet time, right, in the morning, to be spending time with God and to be continuing to learn and learn about God, ourselves, and the relationship between the two of those. Okay, so then reprogramming our robot. What does that mean? Well, our robot, you can think of our robot as being essentially our subconscious. It kind of governs or controls about 90% of what we do, and is made up of everything from our feelings, our needs, our desires, our perceptions, our self-image, our self-talk, right? What we say to ourselves, and ultimately our values, right? So our values are so key. We don't automatically have God's values. Our robot is influenced by a lot. We are influenced by our family, our friends, the media, social media for sure nowadays, books, all kinds of different things. And so we want to make sure that we're not embracing the world's values. We want to make sure that we're embracing God's values. This actually has eternal implications, okay? The world is actually run by our adversary, the devil. And until Jesus returns and sets up his kingdom, and ultimately God will judge in the future good and evil. But right now, the world system is under the control of Satan. And we don't want to be embracing his values. He's the father of lies. We want to be following and embracing the values of the father of truth. The God of the scriptures, the God of light, the God of truth. Okay, so we need to reprogram our robot so that our values are in line, and then out of that, we will be doing the right things. We'll be doing the things that are pleasing to God as our robot is reprogrammed, okay, to be valuing the right things. Okay, Are you ready to put some action to this? Here we go. So I am continually learning and reprogramming, right? This is change our mind, my robot. Okay, that's my robot. You can make your robot as elaborate as you want, but I'm just gonna do 3 little moves. Okay, so I'm continually learning, I'm taking in information and reprogramming, changing my thinking, my robot to do all that God has revealed in the Bible, in my Bible, He requires of me. Okay, all that God has revealed in the Bible, He requires of me. Okay, so let's review that. I am continually learning and reprogramming my robot to do all that God has revealed in the Bible He requires of me. Great. Okay, so now our verse actually talks about this reprogramming our robot process, just in a slightly different way, talking about renewing our minds. So our verse is Romans 12:2. It says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." Okay, so as with all verses, we want to make sure that we are understanding the larger context in which the verse is found. So in this case, the book of Romans is quite dense. It's a letter, and there have been 11 chapters prior to this. Those 11 chapters have dealt with justification, forgiveness of sins, faith, sanctification, becoming holy in God's sight. Chapters 9 through 11 are talking about God's grand plan, show mercy on Jews and Gentiles, and to share in His blessings. And so now we're at Romans chapter 12. Okay, it starts with verse 1. Our verse is verse 2, but it starts with verse 1, where Paul is saying, he urges them, in light of the mercies of God, in light of all of the great things that God has offered, to present their bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is their reasonable service, a reasonable act of worship. So in the Old Testament, the service, the priests went and did the service that God had required. And so we are to be serving God in the following way, which is comprised in verse 2. This is how we do this. We need to not be conformed, first of all. Okay, not be pressed into the mold of the world, but to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Okay, so there's the what not to do, and then there's the what to do. Okay, and so the world is run by our adversary. Satan runs this world, and so we don't want to be conforming our thinking to the father of lies. We want to be conforming our thinking to the God of truth. And so we don't want to be pressed into the mold of the world, but we need to be transformed. And this transformed word means metamorphosis. It is what a caterpillar does to turn into a butterfly. Okay, it's a change of form. And so we need to renew our mind in order to experience this transformation process, right? So the scriptures talk about metamorphosis through renewing our mind, reprogramming our robot, renew our mind with the truth, so that we can prove or demonstrate what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Okay? It's good, it's acceptable, it's well-pleasing to God, and ultimately to ourselves. We get benefit from obeying our God now and in the future. And then perfect will of God. There's nothing better. There's just nothing better than God's will. And one thing we do need to make sure that we don't fall into is believing the lie that God is not good. Okay, it can come in the form of doubt, and we can be tempted by our adversary to believe that our God is not good, but He is. So in order to demonstrate the good and acceptable and perfect will of God, we need to do the first part. Do not be conformed, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And this is offering service to God. It is reprogramming our robot with our values so that we will be valuing what God values. And when we value what God values, we will do it. We want to know and do it. And then we are considered godly in his sight. So I pray that you really do take this seriously. This is such an incredibly important verse, and it's such an incredibly important thing that we need to do in order to experience God's perfect will in our lives. It has eternal implications. And so I pray that you will take this to heart and that you will be knowing and doing what God requires as a godly person. Okay, so until the next ABC of success, have a great day. Bye.